Hello and welcome to Young Money. I'm Anozi Pumbanjwa. Today we're coming to you from the heart of the Sandton CBD. We're very privileged to be sitting down with globetrotter Adrian Furstenburg. He's just landed from New York and his first stop was Young Money. And today we're going to be learning about his business as well as his brand and how he's taken that outside of South Africa into the global market and how he's coming back full circle to connect with Africa. It's going to be an exciting show. Remember, of course, that if you want to ask questions, contribute, or if you just want us to come to you, follow me at The Real Nosy or at CNBC Africa. And don't forget our hashtag, it's Young Money 410. Adrian, it's such a pleasure to catch you, especially in South Africa. I know you're literally all over the world. But let's take quite a number of steps back. I want to go back to the beginning of your journey, leading up to Adrian Furstenburg. Where did you start realizing that you had a love for creating magnificent handbag pieces?
Okay, wonderful. Thank you first so much for having me. Secondly, on your question, I studied textile design. So I wanted to get into the fashion industry like that. And my dad was like, he's not going to pay for fashion. So I actually lied to him and I said I'm going to do graphic design, but I chose textiles instead. Then in 2006, I was in a very bad car accident. So what happened was for my practical exam, I had to do something like with silk screen printing, which I couldn't do, of course, because of my injury. So I opted for weaving instead. Then I had this beautiful piece of cloth and I was like, something has to happen with it. So I had it made into 4 different handbags, and that is exactly where the passion started. Oh,
wow.
Yes.
And how did Dad react when he realized that it wasn't graphic designing and that you had been doing...
Many years later on did he realize okay, cool, this kid is onto something. So yeah, I had to prove to myself and to him as well.
And you were certainly were onto something. And oftentimes in these conversations, we jump just to celebrate the success. But I know that the journey has been long and there have been ups and downs. Take us through some of those moments that even as you reflect them back on them now, you realize this is what's actually made me and the brand.
I remember in 2009, now nothing is as confident as somebody in their 20s. I promise you. I knew everything. So what I did was I used all of my savings and then I launched my first collection in 2009. I had a beautiful event at a boutique hotel and I had my first collection. I felt so fancy and didn't make any sales.
Not a single
really
sale.
Didn't make any sales. And after that I was I said, what am I going to do with this stock? So basically that was a huge failure.
And have you been able to pinpoint what the biggest learning from that particular incident was? What did you have to do differently going forward?
You know what, one of the things that I absolutely live by is the fact that you can't just follow your heart. You have to take your brain with you.
Yes.
So what it is when it comes to building a brand, it's very different to building a business, because although they both have to run coherently with each other, you have to do marketing, you have to focus on sales, you have to focus on the production of the actual product. And in the end, it's about the client who buys the product that makes the business worth the while.
Well, I do want us to come back to that, because I think oftentimes entrepreneurs do actually think that the brand is the business and the business is the brand. And it would be really interesting to understand why the two can't be treated as one entity. But
Wonderful.
You got over the first setback, and then what happened?
So then I worked in the costume industry. I actually worked in Paris as a costume designer, and then I worked as a stylist as well. So I've always had an absolute love for the fashion industry. So worked in clothing for a bit, and then styling, and then really didn't like that. Handbags have always been really deeply connected to my heart.
Yeah.
So after that, what I realized was, if I want to be making it in the industry, I have to focus on one thing, and then definitely handbags was it.
That's so interesting as well, because I literally in a conversation with Andile Kumalo about a week ago, and he says one of the biggest things that entrepreneurs need to remember is that this is not about investment where the rule is diversify. You actually need to intensify, and
Absolutely.
that is focus on the thing that you're really good at. So you then decided that you're going to intensify and you're going to focus on the thing that you were going to good. But it must have meant, Adrian, that you had to let go of a couple of things.
Oh, absolutely. You know what it is when having a talent and a passion, for example, like clothing and styling and the theater and all of those types of things, to say goodbye to, for example, clients who wants to order, say, a bespoke suit or a pair of jeans or a shirt or something like that, and then saying no to that so that I can focus on the handbags was a bit of a challenge, because as a business owner, you kind of have to get the money in as well. So I had to strike that balance of when do I say no and when do I say yes? And more often than not, it is about communicating what I'm doing to the client. So I said focus on the handbags. That is what I'm doing now.
There are many entrepreneurs watching this show who oftentimes grapple with a similar challenge, and the thing that they need to say no to sometimes is a thing that is revenue generating and pays the bills and takes care of the overheads. If you were to give them a little piece of advice from your own experience, the process of letting go and committing to the one thing, even if it's not the most revenue generating activity, what would that advice be?
Now that I'm at a place in my career where I can look back and say, okay, what were the challenges that I had to face?
Yeah.
If you just do anything for money, like, I mean, you're gonna hit a brick wall, because then you might as well just become a greengrocer on the corner, because it's
absolutely, and veggies go these days, right?
that is the case. So when it comes to making a decision, like, I mean, your heart will tell you, you know what to say no to and what to say yes to. Of course, it's very important to pay your bills, but then striking that balance between, like, what do I love doing and what pays my bills? And you know what? The answers will come your way. You will see.
Adrian, it's very clear that both the brand and the business are doing very well, but all of this starts with you actually getting into the market. What was that experience like, where you began to compete with other providers in not only just the global market, but maybe where you started?
You know what it is? It's when you start a brand versus starting a business, as we said earlier, like, I mean, you find that one thing that you focus on. So you know exactly that one thing that you're good with. So when I entered the market as a designer, I started with bespoke bags, so that I can get information from the client, like, I mean, on a bespoke service level, so that I'm like, this is what people like, this is what they don't like, because more often than not, what I love is not always what the client loves. So the thing is about doing that research and, like, checking. I would rather say make a mistake on 1 or 2 or 3 or even 10 bags than what I would on, say, 100 or 200 or 300.
But it's also about being open to the feedback, right? Because if you're so sold that this is a beautiful piece and Nozifa comes back and she's like, the handles don't work for me,
then don't like it. Like, you see, that is the thing. Like, I mean, I do a lot of market research. Like, I'm getting back from New York now, as I said. I went to a creative studio of a company called Steve Madden, like, I mean, they do shoes, and I was actually invited to their creative hub. And it's amazing what they do, because they have a specific formula of producing what they think the client wants, as well as what the client wanted over the last, say, like, season of 6 months or so. Like, I mean, striking that balance and then completely not flooding the market, but producing a whole lot of stuff.
Adrian, share with us your experience of actually entering the market.
The wonderful thing that happened was, like, I mean, I applied for the Handbag Designer Awards, which was this amazing key to the industry that opened up many doors for me. So what it was, like, in South Africa, I mean, I've always had this passion for handbags, but there had to be something that's going to set me apart. And I thought, what can I do as a designer, and secondly as an entrepreneur, to get my name known? And then I did a whole lot of research, and I came about the Handbag Designer Awards, which was in New York City.
So let's talk about awards, because awards have become commonplace for you, and you've been picking up global awards in particular. What do the awards actually do for the business?
You know what, one thing is, like, I mean, when you think about credibility as a brand, if you look at any, say, for example, a car manufacturer, if they don't have, like, a safety credibility, the sales won't really be there. So in the design field, when you have the credibility of an international award backing you, like, I mean, that automatically puts you above the rest, I would say. So that is definitely the one thing that I would go after.
And you've said international award, because oftentimes I'll speak to entrepreneurs who say, I almost feel like I had to be recognized by the world before my country could recognize me. I don't know how you feel about that statement.
That is exactly the truth. You know what, there's a South African mentality that when it's from the United States or Europe, it automatically is better. That is definitely not the case. But unfortunately, you have to work with what the market wants. So that is one of my formulas about creating a success, is that if I get recognized in New York City and London and Paris, automatically my credibility will grow in South Africa.
And let's talk about your markets. Where are your biggest markets? Where's the biggest demand for your products?
United States and South Africa at the moment. Although the wonderful thing is I've been getting interest in Australia, Hong Kong, Singapore, London and France.
And I'm sure that those are leads that you are looking to convert. So does this mean that the business will continue to grow beyond South Africa and beyond the US, where we know that you're already established?
Absolutely. You know what it is like? I mean, my dream is to create a global brand. So that I can go back to where I started, where I said, like, I mean, I'm doing this and I'm doing this right. So I'm really focused on building an absolutely amazing big global brand. So if I have the East, the middle, which is basically like Europe and Africa and South Africa,
Yes.
as well as the United States. You've got all four corners of the world covered. So that's exactly what I'm heading in.
Just before we go to break, I mean, I love this idea that you've set your sights on building a global brand. How different is that from saying, I'm building a brand, and most times a brand that maybe just lives and is known within South Africa? How do you have to think differently about building something that's global versus something that perhaps is just rooted in the national context?
You know what, I think it's a very personal choice about what you define as success. At this moment, I consider myself successful already because I've achieved everything I've ever wanted. But it gives me the biggest joy when I see somebody wear one of my handbags. So if I can have people in China, for example, wear a proudly South African product, somebody in New York, maybe somebody down south in Peru or something, that gives me such a sense of satisfaction because I know that I've used my talents to create something that makes other people happy as well.
Well, there you have it. Adrian is using his talents to create something that other people love. And certainly, if you haven't got your hands on one of these, it's either you put it on your bucket list, your birthday list, whatever it needs to be, and hopefully you'll get one of these gifted to you at some point. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to prod Adrian a little bit so that we can find out a little bit more about what drives him and what his inspiration is. We'll see you in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Young Money. We're sitting down with Adrian Furstenburg, and as you can see, the collection that he's brought with him today is absolutely phenomenal. I'm still crossing fingers that maybe we can have a conversation after this about a huge discount that I'm going to need. But Adrian, again, you know, before I get just to understanding the personal journey and your inspiration, let's quickly talk price point and how you decided at which point in the market you're going to actually pitch the product.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for asking that because it comes down to price many a times.
Yeah.
So what I do is I do a lot of market research, both locally and internationally. So I priced my products the same as Kate Spade or Michael Kors. So they start at an average of 3,800 Rand up to 8,000 Rand, which is for the big travel bag. So it's like everything in between. So it ranges basically from $280 up to about $600.
And what makes an Adrian Furstenburg special? Why Adrian Furstenburg versus Michael Kors? Why would I pick up this baby instead of an MK?
You know what it is like, as human beings, it's the inside that counts. So if you don't mind, can I quickly show you what it is about? So this is one of my favorite bags. This is number 5 from the 7 series.
Oh, wow. So let's turn that to the camera. Look at that. Oh, wow.
What makes it really special is can I give you a bit of history on the lining? So when I got my first designer handbag, I was in standard 6. Those were the days we were still at standards. And I bought a Calvin Klein perfume, saved up my money to buy a Calvin Klein perfume because you got this really cute messenger bag with it. And after 2 months, I was devastated because the lining tore completely. So when I got into this, I was like, I'm going to vouch to myself. I'm going to create the most amazing and strongest lining there is. So that's basically how the lining was born. A good friend of mine, Peter, and I, we decided to design it together. And we came up with a signature lining of Adrian Furstenburg. Secondly, when you use a bag, you put your life's most precious items in there. It is your wallet, it is your mobile phone, your car, your house keys, your passport, your wallet, all of those types of things, which is super important. As you can see, I wear glasses. Now, I don't know why no other designers ever thought about it, but I have a sunglasses case built into each one of the handbags.
Oh, that's fabulous. Oh, I see that. So if we tilt that again, so it's right over there. So if you were to right there, and then it would just be
slotting right in there, exactly. And then for your mobile phone,
this Adrian, it feels beautiful. And then you've got the mobile
phone. It's also wipeable, and the main thing is, as you can see, it's super colorful. You will be able to find anything in there. It won't disappear like most of the other bags. Yeah, that is it.
So this, I mean, I really love this baby because I feel like this, you know, you can almost dress it up, dress it down, one way or the other. It's always going to work. So I really love this. And if I just do a peek inside to see if Adrian's true to his word, yes, he is. So you've got that signature lining coming through again.
Happening everywhere.
Happening everywhere. So, I mean, I know that by the time you went to university or post-secondary education, Dad's not too excited about this idea that you could potentially be venturing into fashion. But what keeps you going? I mean, one would think that this is a very difficult space to differentiate yourself in. You
know what? There's one thing. When like I said, my dad didn't want me to study fashion design. So when I made the decision of this is what I want to do, it's amazing how your dream and your passion can keep you driving regardless of what is happening to you. So when I sold my very first handbag, like I was the luckiest boy on the planet. Like, I mean, and that is exactly what I'm after every time. So whenever I see a client, if they spend a small or a large amount of money with me, like, I mean, if they have one of my bags, that really does keep me going.
And so, and that's important, because then it becomes a really positive, reinforcing experience. Happy clients, happy Adrian.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
But again, I mean, when you came in, we were talking about your crisscrossing around the world. How does that work? I mean, for you to be able to run a global business, does it necessarily mean that you have to live on 3 continents?
Well, you know what, like, I mean, thank the Lord for social media and the internet, which has been the biggest gift to entrepreneurs up to date. Secondly, I really have an amazing team of production people over in my atelier in Johannesburg. So, so the cool thing is I can trust those guys with absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Second to that, bags are about traveling. Like, if you travel from here to the office, that is also some sort of a travel. Like, I mean, if you travel from here to New York City, that's also a huge piece of traveling. So what I do is, like, I test all of my products. Like, I mean, so I know exactly that it works for the bus, for the train, for the plane, for everything in between.
And so you become the first guinea pig that's always testing the bags. I wanted to talk about your team. I mean, and maybe we can start off just by talking about the team in Johannesburg. I mean, oftentimes, if you are the founder or the brains of a product or a service, there's always a difficulty about trusting that other people care as much about the business as you do. So how did you work around?
You know what, like, I mean, it took me some time to get to the team that I have today. Like, I mean, I have 2 guys, Fanwell and Hesman. Like, I mean, they are the permanent manufacturers of the company, and then we bring extra people in whenever we need them. Then there's also a lady named Bianca, who's like the studio supervisor, who comes in every once in a bit to check that everything's going well. But you know what I did was, because the inspiration comes from traveling, I took my team on their very first trip to Cape Town. Like, and so this is their first time on an aeroplane, the first time experiencing what our clients would experience.
Yes.
So that was definitely the game changer. I gave them something. I remember my first time on an aeroplane, so that absolute excitement that comes with it. Secondly, this is not just my business. This is their business as well. So we do have profit sharing. We do have, they've got input on everything, from the website, from the pricing, to the manufacturing, to the delivery, even the packaging. So that is the beautiful thing about my business when it comes to trust. So I trust them on absolutely everything that I do.
And I mean, that's not the norm. Oftentimes, people just work for an Adrian Furstenburg and you get your salary and that's the end of it. Why did you decide that you were going to allow the team to part own the business, and what was the driving force and the rationale behind that thinking? You
know what, the one thing with what I picked up in my experience when I worked for other people was, you don't always share their passion. You just do it for the salary. And I mean, you can't just do it for the salary, because life is so intense as it is. And you spend at least a third of your life, which is 8 hours a day, at work. So if that's not worth the while, it really isn't going to be, it's not going to be amazing. So if I somehow share my dreams, my passions, my everything with the people who I work with, like, I mean, it really does become a game changer on the inside. And therefore, I promise you, the quality of the work, everything improves.
And finding the right people, though, must be a very, very important part of that.
Very, very, very difficult, because South Africa is not famous for handbag production, although we have a huge leather industry and whatnot. So finding the right people to produce the product was a challenge. But you know what, just keep on going, and I managed to find really an incredible team who I'm super thankful for.
Well, talking about keeping on and keeping on going in particular, it brings us to talk about the future and what's next on the pipeline. What are you working on? What are some of the big ideas that you think are going to catapult the business to the next level?
At the moment, with all of my travels, like, I mean, I do travel quite extensively. Every second month I'm in a different country. So what I'm doing now is I'm planting the seeds, like, I mean, with agents, with marketing people, with facilitators, whoever can actually help me grow my business on the other side, beyond South African borders. So there is a huge marketing campaign happening with one of South Africa's biggest brands at the moment, which will be local and international. Right. I can't really say anything just as yet, because I had
come on, Adrian.
Oh no, I had to sign an NDA. So the thing is, that is going to be the thing that is going to take me to the next level. So,
and how do you measure success? Is it the number of sales? Is it you know, the visibility in the different markets? Is it the awards? What matters most to you?
You know what, like, I mean, all of those things are important, because if you look at my business plan, for example, it is in the shape of my body. It's the mouth of marketing, it's the hand of production, it's the lungs that are the financial plans. So the body needs to operate at optimum levels. So when you measure success, it's got to be on all of those levels. So what I usually do is, like, when I go to bed at night, I'm just like, yeah, I did well.
Yeah.
If I sold one bag, like, I mean, that's more than what I did yesterday. If there's more money in my bank account than what there was yesterday, then I know, yes, yeah, I've made it. If there's less money, then, oh, clearly I'm not doing something right. Like, I mean, let me take that as a lesson and then move from there.
And I don't want to miss the opportunity to actually also tap into the reality that there are other young men, particularly young male entrepreneurs, who have a love for fashion, who have a love for design. And I would suspect that it's quite inspirational for them to see a very successful young man also in this particular space. If you were to encourage them, what would you share with them?
Definitely the following, and I live by these words, is like, follow your heart, but take your brain with you.
Yeah.
Because you know what, it is so, especially in the creative industry, like, I mean, like fashion or acting or whatever not else, we get absolutely captivated by what it seems like. And actually there's a lot of like groundwork like in between and behind the scenes and those types of things. So when you're truly passionate about something, are you willing to suffer for it? Are you willing to go late nights, early mornings, make very little to no money for months at a time? If you're willing to go through those things, then definitely go for it.
And I'm sure that those words are going to matter to a lot of people watching the show. And as we begin to wrap, I mean, what's missing for me in our conversation is Africa. We've jumped from South Africa to New York to possibly going to Asia, to appetite coming from Australia. What are your views on the African market? Do you look at the African market and think, you know, this is a potential place to expand in?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So the big brand that I was talking to you about that I still can't say anything about, I'm sorry. You know what, that links me into the whole of Africa from 2018.
Okay.
So what I do believe is that Africa in itself has incredible potential to be one of the next like moguls when it comes to production as well as sales. So what I'm doing is like I'm working on a huge and beautiful marketing campaign on how to get my product into Africa, because I'm competing against Louis Vuitton, Michael Kors, all of those types of things. I can't particularly compare myself because they have like hundreds, like I mean, Louis Vuitton itself has more than 100 years of experience, thousands of people who work for them. But what can I do as a South African designer with international recognition to get into the African market? And yeah, it is difficult because it's about changing the mind of the consumer. So yeah, there's a lot of challenges that I'm facing, but I'm very, very excited about it.
Lots of challenges, but very excited about the African market. That's what we want to hear. It's been really lovely speaking to Adrian Furstenburg and really just following the growth of the business and the growth of the brand. And if there's one thing that he has repeated and I hope has resonated with you as well, follow your heart, but also remember to bring your head along. It's been an awesome show. Thank you so much for joining us on Young Money. Remember that if you want the Young Money team to come to you, it's really easy. All you need to do is just follow me on Twitter. It's @TheRealNozy. You can also follow at CNBC Africa. Drop the hashtag. It's Young Money 410. Until next time, it's goodbye.